Good evening and welcome to ThaiPBS English News Service. I'm Suppression. The Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Department is warning that 5 provinces in the north are now at risk of landslides. And while the flood situation in Sukhothai is now under control, Don Mueang Airport in Bangkok is building its own barrier, scheduled to be finished by the end of this month. The AOT company, which runs the airports of Thailand, has approved a 130 million baht budget to build a 3.85 meter high flood barrier along the northern side of Don Mueang Airport. The AOT is also negotiating with the Royal Thai Air Force to jointly build a temporary flood wall surrounding the entire airport, a distance of 14 kilometers. The company will also push for canals near the airport to be cleaned and dredged in case last year's massive influx of water reoccurs. The barriers and walls are rescheduled to be finished this month. Don Mueang was closed down for 4 months after it was inundated by last year's floods. As of this October, it is scheduled to serve as the second Bangkok International Airport, with airlines like Nok Air, Thai Air Asia, and Orient Thai based there. Meanwhile, more than a dozen hillside districts in the provinces of Chiang Rai, Lampang, Phayao, Phrae, and Uttaradit are at risk of flash floods and landslides as the torrential rains continue to pour onto the hills. Hillside residents are warned to evacuate if the color of water in creeks and canals turn murky brown, and that is a sign of imminent flash floods. The Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Department is prepared to assist locals in the risk-prone areas in case help is needed. Rail services in the north were suspended last night. Authorities were able to repair the tracks sooner than expected. The tracks had been distorted by strong flood currents. However, trains going to and coming from the north must travel at reduced speed. And while the flood situation in Sukhothai appears to be under control at the moment, the governor of nearby Phrae province fears that water from Phayao province will drain into Phrae before flowing on into Sukhothai, making the situation worse 2 days from now. Meanwhile, downtown Sukhothai has been underwater for 4 days, and authorities are preparing a plan B in case the current placement of large-sized sandbags or big bags fail to hold back the waters. The governor says the temporary barrier is now 60% complete and will be 100% done by tonight. The Sukhothai governor believes the situation will return to normal within 3 days. Food is now becoming scarce and transportation is limited to trucks only. Phitsanulok province is also bracing for flood water flowing down from Sukhothai. Locals are already evacuating residents to high-risk areas. And finally, in Ayutthaya province, where 6 districts were already flooded, the level of the Chao Phraya River rose today by at least another 30 centimeters. And the Prime Minister is not promising that Pathum Thani and Nonthaburi provinces will be safe from the floods this year, only that the government is doing its best. Yet the government spokesperson says some opposition MPs are exploiting people's fears for political benefits. Anusorn Iamsaad, the government spokesperson, says the current flooding situation in the north does not affect the likelihood of flooding in any way. He said some Democrat Party members who claim the government has no skill in managing water is manipulating people's fears as a political tool to discredit his government. He says they should suggest preventive measures instead. On top of the 350 billion baht budget already approved for the government to manage water resources, Anusorn said the government was putting together a new 302 billion baht budget package and would invite proposals for the design and construction of water management systems for suitable and effective flood prevention. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra will fly north to see the water situation in the upstream areas for herself tomorrow. She will call on 6 northern governors to meet and create a common understanding before coming down to Ayutthaya and Nakhon Sawan. The Prime Minister says she will also be focusing on an efficient warning system for residents in flood-prone areas. She stressed she cannot predict if Pathum Thani and Nonthaburi provinces will face another round of major floods this year, saying that the government will do its best to prevent it. And farmers in Ladkrabang district have petitioned the district office to inspect water quality in a 27-rai plot of farmland after red water was found in the area and dead fish were seen floating in the surface. Initially, it is believed that a chemical substance has been illegally dumped into the farmland. Today, Sanya Chandrat, advisor to the Bangkok governor, visited a 27-rai plot of farmland in Ladkrabang district, which belongs to Somchai Muean Sawat, after the water in the area was found to be contaminated and turned red. Many dead fish were also found. Somchai, the owner of the farmland, believes that a hazardous chemical substance was being dumped into the area on the evening of September the 7th. The advisor to the Bangkok governor said that the initial inspection of the water by the Pollution Control Department found that it contains a high degree of acid. Hence, Sanya has instructed that the water from the farmland is not drained into nearby canals to avoid spreading the pollution. The Bangkok Health Office has also been called upon to spray lime in the water to reduce its acidity. Meanwhile, the chemical substance has to be identified first before authorities can track down the people responsible and file a legal case. Following a widespread skepticism about the region's preparedness, the ASEAN Secretary General said today that there is a possibility that the long-awaited AEC may actually start in the year 2016. At the Regional Energy Ministers meeting in Phnom Penh, Surin Pitsuwan, Secretary General of ASEAN, said that the launch of the ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC, was never assigned to a specific date. This means if the AEC is formed in late 2015, it may be 2016 before the free flow of trade in this region starts. Surin was quoted saying the target date recently set by ASEAN economic ministers is in fact December 31st, 2015. The region is economically diverse, with wealthy Singapore alongside middle-income countries such as Malaysia and Thailand. ASEAN also contains much poorer nations such as Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar. Some observers speculate that ASEAN could become a two-tier structure, with the smaller nations missing out on the trade opportunities provided by the larger nations, as they may not be fully ready for integration. The government boasts that its narcotics suppression policy has proven successful in the past year, as more than 500,000 drug addicts requested rehabilitation. Deputy Prime Minister Chalerm Yubamrung, the government's head of the drug suppression, together with police and other drug suppression units, revealed that 580,000 drug users have registered for rehabilitation. That's a 180,000 more than the target of 400,000. It's been a year since the government's gloves-off policy against drugs came into effect. Meanwhile, Deputy PM Chalerm is asking the opposition Democrats, whose stronghold is in the south of Thailand, to assist the government in solving unrest in the Deep South. Meanwhile, the Commerce Ministry affirmed that it is satisfied with its performance over the past 1 year, even though there were criticisms about graft in some of the ministry's programs. Yet there are still people who remain disconnected with the ministry's work, especially measures on cost of living, which they claim to be inefficient.
At the press conference about the Commerce Ministry's performance over the past year, Bunsong Teriyapirom, the Commerce Minister, said that he is pleased with every initiative his ministry has undertaken thus far. This encompasses measures that help alleviate the rising cost of living, as well as those that help lift the value of agricultural products and Thai industry preparations for the start of the ASEAN Economic Community. Even though some of the ministry's programs, such as the rice pledging scheme, have been criticized for corruption, Bunsong insisted that these are successful initiatives because they have helped lift farmers' income and improve the standard of living. On the other hand, some citizens, like this gentleman, said that they are dissatisfied with the performance of the Commerce Ministry, especially with its cost of living control measures, as commodity prices remain on the high side. Next year, the Commerce Ministry will place greater emphasis on lifting the price level of agricultural goods, while taking care of increasing cost of living. The price structure of agricultural products, including the ministry's recommended prices, will be introduced on a wider basis. The Commerce Ministry insisted that everything will be done transparently.
After the first full year of the Pheu Thai party-led government's fiscal policy, concerns have been raised as to whether the budget has been spent wisely. Dr. Runtip Chodnapalai talked to Associate Professor Sawani Thairungrod, President of the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce, who pointed that the government have followed the fiscal policy as was defined during their election campaign, but they must also create a long-term stimulus plan and ensure that sustainability during the current global economic downturn exists.
That to care more and to do more about the competitiveness of the country, the side of of producers, of entrepreneurs, and this is so difficult to do. We have to focus on creativity, like research and development, looking for new innovation, and even looking at improving or changing some law and some
to be more updated to the opening of to the upcoming of the AEC,
and to give and set more standard and give like information and training all the producers about the standards of the goods and service. This is for the AEC coming very soon.
Right, in the 2015. So what is your most concern for the fiscal policy of this government?
The discipline of the budget deficit. This is so important because it is like the trademark of Thailand, and we can see samples from Europe, like Greece and Spain, and we don't want that to happen in Thailand. So this is so important that the government has to keep discipline and be careful in using spending all the budget. Those budgets should be able to answer the long-term competitiveness of the country, not just only one shot, 1 year stimulating. But we can understand that it was necessary to do so during the past year because of the flood and because of the drop in the demand, the export demand.
The education of girls is thought to contribute millions of dollars to economic growth of a country, and failing to educate girls to the same level as boys is a missed opportunity for the economic growth of a country. According to the World Bank research and economic data and UNESCO education statistics, failing to educate girls to the same standard as boys is believed to limit economic growth in the country. The CEO of Plan International explains that providing equal education for girls and boys could present more opportunities for future growth for the family and community development.
Girls and women invest more in their own families and communities than boys and men. Boys and men don't like having to accept that, but it's a truth. So we know that if you can keep girls at school, give them a better education, they then get a better job, they put that money into their families, into the communities, and they help lift the whole community out of poverty. So the economics of investing in education and its relationship with poverty are well known and well proven, and I just wish the world would listen more, because if they listen more to it, they would invest more in education.
Joining the campaign to empower girls' education in Chiang Rai province, the Playground Music Band has been expressing their perspective on how education for girls is important, not only for themselves, but also the whole country.
It's important to anyone, really, no matter what gender you are. But the issue that we have heard during the time we're here is that the girls are not confident enough with their life, because they don't know anything. They're not educated enough to have the knowledge to do anything. So that's kind of like lower their self-esteem a bit. I think if they focus on that more on the education, when they have the knowledge, they could do a lot more than what they're doing now here in this village, or in this country, really.
As part of the global campaign to ensure gender equality in education as part of the Millennium Development Goals for 2015, International Girls' Day has been established on the 11th of October under the campaign theme, Because I Am a Girl. And that's all the time we have for tonight's edition of Thai PBS English News Service. If you'd like to join our team, please feel free to visit our website, thaipbs.or.th, and send your resumes to job@thaipbs.or.th. I'm Suppression, wishing you a very pleasant evening. สวัสดีครับ